All right, you guys.
Are we live?
Now we're live.
Okay, now we're live. Hi, welcome. I'm Lynette Elinda, and this is Graham Wardle, and this is Reflections on the Journey for the Mathamagical audiobook.
This is episode 10, part 2 of the Master Keys. So we're going to be covering surrender, appreciation, and for the greater good of all.
3 really big keys.
Yes.
3 really big keys. So thank you for being patient. We had a little bit of a delay in terms of technical stuff. If you look behind us, you can see the view that we have in front of us. So for any of you who haven't been to Whistler, British Columbia, I highly recommend that you make a trip out here. Just make sure that you come when it's
A little
snowing.
If you like the heat, this is really nice.
It is. It's cooking up here. I don't know if it's because we're closer to the sun or what's going on, but it's really hot today.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We got some people from Austin, Texas here, Pennsylvania, Spokane, Washington, where else? South Carolina. That's awesome. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Yeah. I've been to all those places. That's awesome.
Really?
Yeah. I remember North Carolina, the pine cones, the size of the pine cones in North Carolina. And I remember the temperatures in Arizona.
Arizona is super hot.
Rosedale, Flagstaff. Yeah.
Bev Butler's from Australia. She's joining us.
Oh,
we also got
Bev.
Christine Holland from Florida. And
I haven't been to
Belgium, Norway. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
I have been to Belgium and I've been to Norway. Wonderful. Nice to see you guys. I've got an image in my head of where you are.
Awesome.
Okay.
So we're going to be doing similar to what we did part 1 this morning, where we're going to answer your questions near the end of the episode. So if you have questions, just have them ready. And then I'll say, ask your questions, and then we'll go to the comments as well. And for those of you who have written in on the website, we're going to answer some of those questions as well.
And please take a moment, if you need to digest what's coming through. One of the reasons that Graham and I work so well together is that Graham acts like a bit of a transponder for me. I'm channeling these answers. I don't rehearse any of this. I didn't rehearse the book. Everything just flows through. And as a result, sometimes it comes through pretty intense and fast. So it's really beneficial to go back, especially with these episodes here, because I'm trying to get as much information as I can, to go back and have a listen again and again. And you might find that there's layers to it. Typically, that's what people experience. Okay, so go.
So let's talk about surrender. This is my personal favorite master key.
Yes.
So is this master key related to that old saying, let go and let God?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Only you don't have to necessarily believe in a God to surrender. Surrendering is so powerful because surrendering is essentially when we are receiving a cue from the universe to let go of what we're trying to make happen so that the universe can step in and help us with that. So when we say let go and let God, for me, that really means, okay, I can't do anything more with my earthly being. I'm going to let it go. The universe is going to kick in and take it to the next level, to take it to the next step for me. So surrendering is very, very powerful and not easy. Not easy. Okay. I do want to remind people, though, that if you were being asked to surrender something really big, something deeply meaningful, something that you're very, very close to, in the surrendering of that, you will find on the other side of it that the benefits that come from the surrendering will make it worth it every time. And this is why it's one of my favorite keys. Because I recognize that if I'm pushing, if things aren't going with the flow, I need to let go, let the universe take over to do the heavy lifting, and then I can get on with things. But it is not easy to let go. Definitely not easy to let go.
When we're faced with a really challenging situation that's like emotionally painful, how can we surrender when we're experiencing this deep emotional pain? Like it's present in us right now, and everything in us wants to fight or to resist what's going on.
We want to attach, we want to wrestle it to the ground. Our logical mind comes in and it wants to fix things and make things move around. Well, I can think of certain situations in my own life, and one that I'm kind of going through right now, and I'm having to repeatedly surrender in each moment. When the situation rises up in my mind, when the feelings rise up that are causing me to feel overwhelmed, I surrender and I surrender again, and then I surrender again, and I surrender again. And sometimes in the surrendering process, journaling can be really, really helpful to help us process out those feelings, especially if we're letting go of a loved one or a relationship or something that we were deep, like you said, that we were deeply emotionally attached to. And breathing. Just letting it go and reminding ourselves over and over again as we're sort of, it's almost like letting the pressure off as we're letting go. Okay. And it needs to be done in stages with certain situations, especially emotionally. If we have an expectation that just, overnight, we're going to be able to let something go, you're going to end up really disappointed, because that isn't possible. It takes time. It takes repetition. And this is why so few people actually do it. They wrestle back control. They take control back and then try to fix it themselves. I like to call this playing tennis with God. Okay. I keep receiving it and serving it back, receiving it and serving it back, instead of just letting it go. Let it go. Don't take it back. Keep practicing. It takes time. Not easy.
We play tennis with God is because our ego keeps trying to control things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Our mind wants to solve it all, fix it all, push it away.
We don't like limbo.
Yeah.
And with surrendering, it's really helpful to recognize that when one door closes, another door will open at the universe's discretion. And our challenge is to remain in the corridor in between. That's what's so difficult, especially when we're letting go of something that we really, really love. Take, for example, relationships. Okay. Letting go of a relationship can mean, or let's take a romantic relationship. Okay. Taking the time to recognize that, especially when letting go of romantic relationships, we can be experiencing thoughts and feelings that say we're going to be alone, that this person is going to leave a big void. And, we're terrified of being alone, so we don't want to let go. And that's where I want to remind you that two things cannot coexist in the same space in the same time. So if we let go of what does not serve us, we're actually allowing the universe to refill that space. Once we've let go and created space, to refill that space with what does serve us. So surrendering, in many cases, is absolutely imperative to get where we really want to go. It just feels often counterintuitive. I know it does for me.
The idea of surrender for a lot of people, at least for myself, when I was first learning about it, held this connotation of defeat or apathy or giving up, but it's not that. So how does someone surrender but still remain active in taking initiative in their lives? Because it's not just sitting on the couch and waiting,
No, this isn't giving up. This isn't throwing in the towel. This isn't any of those things. Surrendering is recognizing how energy flows. And that when we come to a contracted state, when we come to a place where things are just not moving forward, we have to let go. We can't, at the personal, subjective level of our personalities, control the big world out there. It's imperative that we understand we're working in co-creating with the universe. And there's jobs that we handle and there's jobs that the universe handles. So when we're surrendering, we're not letting go and giving up. We're letting go with the flow so that we can receive that next message, that next step that isn't our job and that the universe needs to take care of. So you're not giving up. It's kind of like, knowing when to pick your battles, knowing when to let go, knowing when to hold, knowing when to fold. And in different situations, in different circumstances, it may ask that, we surrender at this point and then pick it back up again a little bit later on down the road when intuition and guidance show us that that's the right thing to do, that that's what's going to be for the greater good of all. So surrendering is really tricky. And once again, I'm going to go much deeper into these subjects on the penthouse perspective, because they are really vast subjects. And by no means have we covered everything when it comes to this.
Can we dive a little bit more into this, though?
Of course.
Sometimes for myself, I'm like, oh, I'm surrendering. But what I'm really doing is avoiding an uncomfortable decision that needs to be made.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a really good one.
Good to clarify.
Surrendering means being aware of the circumstances and making a conscious choice to let it go to the flow, to let the universe do the heavy lifting. Surrendering is not denying, deflecting, distorting, or delaying. Okay. And a lot of times we'll go, okay, I don't care. I'm just going to let it go. When in actuality, that is a point when we do need to take action, but we're going to disguise that, call it surrender when it's really giving up. Or when it's saying, I don't care anymore, and I'm going to call it surrendering. So yeah, we do have to check in with integrity, the key that we talked about this morning. We do need to check in with integrity and check with your gut. Tune inside and ask yourself, am I really surrendering to the flow? Am I letting the universe take over and do the heavy lifting? Or am I running and hiding and avoiding? Okay, really good questions. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's something that I struggled with when I was first learning about it, was like, oh yeah, I'm just surrendering. I'm just going to let go. And then it was more so when I got quiet and was present with myself, the feelings, I'd be like, oh, I'm avoiding something.
Yeah. And if there's any kind of a feeling that's rising up inside that's saying something like, duck it. If you're saying duck it, you're not surrendering. Okay. That's really different than surrendering.
You also say in this master key in Mathamagical, you say your vulnerability is your invincibility unmasked.
Yeah.
That's a mouthful. So what
That
does that
is,
mean?
your vulnerability is your invincibility unmasked. A lot of us feel that when we're feeling, we feel we're vulnerable. You're in a place of change. You're surrendering. You're growing through life. And let's face it, nobody's given a manual. I don't know about you guys, but I wasn't given a manual in terms of how to handle this. So anytime we're outside of our comfort zone, we're going to feel vulnerable.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's imperative to recognize that we do not grow inside our comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
We have to go outside of our comfort zone in order to grow. And if we recognize that we are feeling vulnerable, is really our ego saying, I don't like this change. I don't feel comfortable with this.
Mm.
Okay. We recognize then that we're on the verge of a really big step. And to surrender and recognize that when we allow ourselves to feel vulnerable, to step into a situation, to be emotionally vulnerable, particularly for a lot of us is difficult, that's actually where our power is. Because that's when we expand, that's when we grow. But we have to go through that uncomfortable stage. It's like if you take a plant that has become root bound. Have you ever seen a plant that's so full of roots? It's like used up all the dirt and there's nothing but roots left. Well, if that plant doesn't get outside of the pot that it's so used to and comfortable in and grow to a bigger pot, that plant is actually over time going to begin to die now. So that's the same thing for us, recognizing we have to get outside of our comfort zone in order to grow. And getting outside of our comfort zone typically also requires surrendering.
So why is it your invincibility?
Because that's where the power is. That's where the growth
that's where
is.
True power is.
When the plant moves outside of the pot that it's outgrown, it's going to feel awkward and vulnerable while it's being replanted and going through the growing stages of being in another pot. It's the same for us. We have to remember that we are eternally growing, conscious, mastering, energetic beings. We're just so amazing. We never stop growing. We're eternal. We're immortal. And right now we are learning how to master energy and emotion in the physical experience that we call being human. Going forward means growing outside of our comfort zone. So I've actually come to a place where I've got pretty good at being vulnerable. It isn't always easy though, but I do find for myself, whether the other person can receive my honesty or not, I do want to be outside of my comfort zone because I know I can't grow inside my comfort zone any more than that pot that's become root bound is going to grow anywhere from there. It's going to eventually begin to die slowly. So if we stay inside of our comfort zone our entire lives, we don't grow, we don't expand. And these are the people that you're going to see that are essentially, I saw somebody the other day that was, it looked to me like stuck in the 1980s. And it can kind of look like that. We don't grow, we don't expand, we don't change. And that is our birthright. So I encourage getting comfortable with the uncomfortable.
And so
it has a purpose.
Life is always growing. If life isn't growing, it's dying,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So if we're not growing, then we're dying.
Slowly.
And so your invincibility is really being in tune with life and growing and expanding.
Yes. And we essentially come to a place, I know I have, where I don't feel like I'm outside of my comfort zone in the same way that I used to when I was much younger. Now I find that I thrive in that place where I'm outside of my comfort zone. Because I know that that's where I grow. I know that's where the real meaty stuff is. And I've become comfortable with that feeling. I like it. It's essentially a place where I'll say to myself, good on you, Lynette. You decided to be honest. You opened up. You were vulnerable. Okay? We're not actually ever vulnerable. When we remember who and what we are, when we remember to practice the tools and we remain aligned, we're not vulnerable as in frail, fragile, or weak. Absolutely not. No. Somebody who gets comfortable in the uncomfortable zone is actually somebody who's really powerful. And it's a higher frequency. It's one of courage.
So when somebody is, let's say someone's learning to practice surrender for the first time, and there's a situation that's really challenging for them, and they feel like they need to solve something or it's really problematic, they don't know what to do, what are the steps that they take? Is it just taking some time for yourself to meditate and to how do you do it?
There's a few steps. First of all, I would acknowledge that I'm stuck. I would acknowledge that I'm outside of my comfort zone and I don't know what to do. And we've been programmed to believe that we should have the answers for everything. We should know how to handle everything all the time. And that's just not possible. So there's a combination of tools. The first one would be acknowledge your situation. Don't create resistance. Don't judge yourself for feeling like you're outside of your comfort zone. Take a breath. We talked about this earlier on the show this morning. B-A-A-A, breathe, accept, allow, and ask for help. So there's a few steps. Surrender to what is, accept and acknowledge the circumstances, and ask for help. Go to the stillness. Take a moment. I call it a cause to pause. Stop, look, listen, go to the guide inside, tune in. And at the very least, the next step will be made clear to you, even if it is only not to take another step right now. The step might be just wait, be patient, take a rest, recharge your batteries, go take care of yourself. It's not an absolute answer for everything, but by and large, it's typically very, very useful to just breathe, surrender, be in the moment.
And is it also tuning into the heart too, right?
Of course. Tuning into the heart. Go to the guide inside is tuning into the heart.
Oh, okay.
Okay. When I'm saying go to the guide inside, that's what we're doing. We're going to go to the stillness, and the meditation practice can be so helpful at points like this, because intuition can speak directly to us in the meditative state. Okay.
So let's jump over to appreciation. If there's
jump. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless there's anything else you want to say about surrender?
Yeah, there's 1,000 more things that I'd like to say about surrender. And if there's anything that happens after we do these shows, is I end up feeling like, oh, I could have said that and I could have said this. So again, back to the penthouse perspective.
What do you love most about surrender?
I love the fact that surrender sets me free. It helps me to recognize that I'm not the only one here. I'm not alone in this experience. And surrender allows me to put the weight down for a moment or two. Okay, we can also surrender a situation just for the evening or for the night and say, okay, I'm going to pick this up in the morning. I know that can be very, very helpful too. So for me, surrender means relief. Surrender means solutions. Surrender means I'm no longer stuck. And a lot of us, this is one more thing I will say, a lot of us think that when we're surrendering, we're not actually doing anything. Oh, this is not true. To truly surrender is actually a very active process, and you're very definitely doing something. Surrendering isn't easy. It is definitely not easy. So somebody who's surrendering is taking action by not taking action. Okay. Does that help?
Yeah, no, I like it. I just wanted more, give you a chance to speak more about it. And because
I love
surrender is one of my favorites. Because it requires in me such faith. And I'm somebody who gets stuck in my head a lot. So getting out of my head and trusting and having faith in a divine or a God to have a plan for me when I don't see it, and I'm like, I feel like I should be doing something.
This is why going into the stillness can be so helpful.
It's worked, and it's shown me things that I never knew I wanted, but was way better than what I thought I wanted.
Yes.
I thought this is what I wanted. I was trying to go for it. I finally took a step back. I surrendered. Was like, you know what? If it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be.
Yeah.
And then something else shows up. I'm like, this is 10 times better than what I was going after. And I didn't even know I wanted this. This is way better.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. You can expect with the universe to always exceed your expectations. Oftentimes when we're on the verge of surrendering, it's a situation where we can't see the forest for the trees. And in surrendering, we gain that clarity. To practice surrender, it will be required to be non-attached, which means we're not investing, we're not disassociating, we're not detaching. We still care, we're still present, but we're going to let go of the outcome for now. We're non-attached. We're going to let the universe flow and show us what the next step is. So so many good things to talk about on the subject of surrender. It's such a powerful, powerful key. And it is why we call it one of the master keys. Absolutely. Essential.
Appreciation, you say, oils the machine.
Yes.
And I like to think of appreciation like drinking lots of water. That's something I have to remind myself. Drink more water, Graham, and it makes your body work better, right? You feel better, you have more energy. And so appreciation works a very similar way, but for the spirit, for the being.
Yes.
Where it lightens you up, it changes your frequency.
Absolutely does. So appreciation actually is a very high frequency. True love is not romantic. It's not lust. True love is unconditional acceptance. And appreciation is a major step towards moving in the direction of unconditional acceptance. Appreciation is a high frequency, which means if you put your attention upon anything and everything that you appreciate, it oils the machine. It moves us forward in life. If we struggle to appreciate, we're going to stay in the lower vibratory states of being, and we're not going to be able to move forward. So one of the practices I encourage is a love list. To daily, take 5 minutes a day. And I challenge you, take 5 minutes a day to write out everything that you appreciate, anything and everything. And like we said this morning, the universe doesn't care what you appreciate. The universe only cares that you appreciate. Okay. So I've gone so far as to say, I appreciate that I woke up this morning. I appreciate that I have running water. I appreciate that I have another chance. I appreciate, having a healthy breakfast. I like, there's just so many things to be able to appreciate. And I'm reminded of a woman I knew many years ago who stood in front of me and was very adamant that her life had come to an end, that there was nothing for her to appreciate, that she didn't know where to go from here, et cetera, doom and gloom. She ended up with the nickname of Miracle Mary, because in a moment I presented to her, I said, well, Mary, actually, if you can appreciate that you're still alive, that you're still here, that you're 6 feet above ground, everything can change from there. And it dawned on her in that moment. You could see it washing over her face as she realized, yeah, as long as I'm 6 feet above ground, there's always something to appreciate. There's always a chance for a new day in a new way.
Is it possible to live in like a constant state of appreciation, or is that a fantasy? Is that kind of delusional to people? No, it's not delusional.
No,
Okay.
it's absolutely not. And you know it. I mean, we
Yeah.
both do. We practice appreciation all the time. I know for me, I'm always looking for the silver lining. I face so many challenges in my life, as many of us have. And sometimes the only way out, my life raft or my life hook or whatever you might call it, was appreciation. For example, the story I shared briefly this morning about being in the hospital when my son was 9 months old. And I was told that he had spinal meningitis and I had 9 months left, or that I had 24 hours left, to enjoy him. So I was sitting there holding him in my arms in the darkened out examining room. And I immediately went to appreciation and saying to the divine, thank you so much for giving him to me for 9 months. If this is all I get, then I'm very grateful for the 9 months that I got. And in that moment, my body was washed with what that little boy later called tickle stars or goosebumps. Okay. It was washed with goosebumps. My hands became really, really hot. And all of a sudden, my son began to stir. Long story short, a few minutes later, as the doctor came back to examine him, the doctor didn't know what to make of it. He came over to me and he said, I've never seen this in my life. He said, I don't know what to tell you. Your son is perfectly fine. You can take him home now. And I watched the doctor walk down the corridor like he'd been hit in the head with a cast iron frying pan. He didn't know what to make of it. So I want to say that appreciation leads to unconditional love, and that's where the miracles are. That's how we move forward. That's how we release resistance. This, however, is not an easy state of being to achieve, and it is one that will require regular practice. And sometimes situations can be pretty dire and you got to really dig deep, but there's always something there, even if only that you're 6 feet above ground.
I've mentioned this before when I'm doing my love list, that I would write things down. I'd say, I appreciate this in my life. I appreciate this, but I wasn't feeling it. And I would often try and think of things and push myself to feel appreciation. But what you say in Mathamagical is the universe doesn't care what you appreciate. It just cares that you're appreciating. So far more important that you
you're
feel
in that
appreciation.
frequency. Yes, like attracts like is the first law. So if you're in a state of appreciation, the universe is automatically going to bring you more to appreciate on any and every subject that you've left the doorway open for. So the same is also true for fear. Please recognize the universe doesn't care what you fear. It just cares that you've focused on fear and is automatically going to bring you more to fear. Okay, so again, fear is a false evaluation about reality or false evidence appearing real. We've all heard these before. Please apply that. Move towards appreciation, even if it is to hold on to a loved one as they take their last breath, which I have had the great privilege of doing. Okay, so there's even something to appreciate in the face of death. And I know that might be sounding tremendously difficult for people to integrate right now, but from personal experience, it's absolutely possible. And appreciation is one of the greatest tools to move through these incredibly large and challenging times that we're all in right now.
When I feel appreciation, Lynette, it's in my heart.
Yes.
And it's in my chest, and I get this warmth feeling.
Yes.
So what is happening on the energetic level when I tune into appreciation? What's going on?
The heart opens at a high frequency, okay? The heart opens when we're in a state of grace and love. So if we stay in a state of appreciation long enough, and I encourage working at it like a wheel, okay? Keep focusing on anything and everything and everything and everything. You eventually raise your frequency like climbing a ladder. Okay, so staying in that state of appreciation. And I encourage actually writing out for ourselves a letter, and I call it break glass in case of emergency. And when you're feeling really great and you're so aware of all the delicious things about life that you appreciate, write yourself a letter. And when you're feeling really low, go back and read the letter, and you'll be amazed at how quickly it'll alter your frequency.
Yeah.
We are dimension hoppers, okay? So sadness, oh, we got lots of mosquitoes here. Mosquitoes and heat and Whistler. Where was I going? Sadness. Okay, so we're dimension hoppers. Sadness is one state of being. Joy is another state of being. Appreciation is higher on the scale than sadness. And we can't often, typically it's very challenging, especially as we begin to practice this and we're a novice. We can't go straight from sadness to joy. Over time, as we become more practiced, we certainly can do it. I know I can. But there are some situations where we're going to have to work our way up. And we're essentially dimension hopping. We're leaving the dimension of sadness, moving to the dimension of hope, moving to the dimension of appreciation, moving to the dimension of joy, unconditional acceptance. Okay? So we essentially want to support ourselves in the process of dimension hopping, going from the lower frequency states to the higher states. And if you pay attention to the heart, you'll feel the heart open up as you're moving to the higher states, to the higher frequencies. It's a very clear sign.
And physicality.
It'll engulf your body.
Yeah.
It spreads like wildfire, and it just, I love it.
Yeah.
I do this every night. I do this every night. I do this every time I'm facing a challenge. I will just simply allow my mind to wander over all these delicious experiences I'm having while I'm in this physical meat suit temple. There's no bill. I can do this. I can do that. I've done this. I've done that. And it doesn't take very long before you're going to dimension hop to the higher frequencies, guaranteed. You feel your heart open up. Breathe into it. Breathe into it and allow it to expand. Okay.
That's a big part of it too, right? Is the physicality, being in your body. If you're hunched over and kind of like sulking, it's going to be harder for you to get into your heart. Whereas if you chest up, breathe, you know, you're outside, you're moving, your body's moving, that's going to help you tune in.
Yes.
Correct?
And we can often use mantras to help us with this. Okay. So we might want to use a mantra that says something like, depending on your circumstances, in a really low vibratory state or a low dimension of being, we could say, I am love, I am safe. I am love, I am safe. I am love, I am safe. And keep on repeating it. And if you stay focused on it, allowing yourself to feel the resistance release as you rise up, okay, you will find yourself shift. Give it a few minutes. Stay with it. Again, you've got to be sincere. I do talk about in other episodes the 3 criteria to resolve conflict, which are sincerity, capacity, ability, and equality. So in order to resolve a conflict within ourselves, which could be that we're in a state of sadness, we no longer want to be there, we've validated this state and we're ready to shift out of it, okay, we need to practice sincerity. If you don't sincerely want to shift and dimension hop, you're not going to be able to do it. So back to the heart, okay, back to integrity, back to the scoreboard and listening to the feelings. Okay.
Let's let's give away a copy.
Oh no,
book.
I can't.
Yeah, okay. So everybody, these little pieces of paper are people that have entered to win a copy of Mathamagical. And Christine Davies, you have one.
Yeah, okay, I don't have my glasses on, so Christine Davies. Wonderful. Christine, congratulations. That's wonderful. Okay, I'm so happy to hear that.
I will be sending you a free copy of Mathamagical.
Great. Dive in. You're going to love it.
So anything else about appreciation that you wanted to...
Oh, wow. Appreciation oils the machine. It's a high frequency. It's a challenge to achieve. It oils the machine. It moves us forward. A daily appreciation journal can actually sort of build up like a bank account, a currency of energy that we can use to move forward. So I find if we stay in a state of appreciation as much of the time as possible, challenges diminish. Or challenges don't even come at all, because again, you've trumped the challenge by showing that in spite of the challenge, you've managed to surrender and move to a state of appreciation, so the universe doesn't need to send you all the lessons. Okay? You trump them and transcend.
It's like you're shifting out of that reality kind of thing.
Dimension hopping from sadness to a higher state of being. Okay?
So master key number 5, this is the key, as you say in the book, the one that encapsulates them all. The whole mathematical journey.
It's such a great key to move forward in life with.
And the key is called, is it for the greater good of all?
Yes. This is also the 4th chakra.
The 4th chakra, which is which one again?
Which is the root chakra.
The root chakra. Okay.
Perineum.
So this is a big idea, and you talk about there only being one of us here, and this being what's the word, like essential to understanding for the greater good of all. So can you explain this master key and how it relates to there's only one of us here?
Yeah. So when we understand that there's only one of us here, we begin to see life from a different perspective. So as we go through the chakras, and many of you have perhaps become aware of how I go through the chakras, the first one asks us, what is our idea? What is our wish, our want, our need, our desire? The second one is the crown, and it says, is this desire doable in 3D? If it is, what's my job and what's the universe's job? The third chakra is the heart, and it says, is this idea that's doable, that I love? Let me do it again. Is this idea that is doable one that I love? And that's the heart chakra. And 20% of the creative process is to have the idea itself. 80% of the creative process is how you feel about it. The fourth chakra is then the root chakra, and it asks, is what I desire for the greater good of all, or at the very least will not cause harm to any other, including me? Now, when we are recognizing that there's only one of us here, if we choose to do something that is not good for us or not good for the other, we will stop the flow. We will stop the expansion. We create separation. So if we begin to move through life with a mindset that says, is this for the greater good of all? And at the very least will not harm any other, including me, we'll find that this gets rid of people pleasing, over functioning, caretaking. It gets rid of the ideas that say I'm externally powered, I'm externally driven. It also asks us to check in with our conscience and ask if something that we are asking for, if something we're desiring in life isn't for the greater good of all. Let's say it'll cause harm to the environment or harm to another. It's self-seeking, it's selfish. We want to recognize that if it's self-seeking and selfish and it's not for the greater good of all, it will not be sustainable. You can still create if you have an idea that's doable, that you really, really love. But if you want it to be sustainable, if you want it to expand, and if you want it to create a win-win situation, which is unity, then it's going to have to be for the greater good of all. And a lot of us would find that if we challenge what we desire with this particular question, is it for the greater good of all? You might find that you abandon ship if you give it a little bit more time and observe. There's definitely things we're going to go, oh, wow, I didn't really think about that. You know, like, I want to go do this thing, or I want to go do that thing, but I'm going to pollute the environment by doing it. Or I want to go and do this thing, but it's really going to harm somebody that I love, or it's going to take away from someone unnecessarily. Okay. It's a tricky one. And I'm going to talk about this one again on the penthouse perspective, because there's a lot of fine details here that I really want to make sure that we cover. Okay.
I wanted to dive into the idea of, as long as it doesn't harm anyone else or yourself. So what about like, because I've heard this term used quite a bit, is like, oh, it's for the greater good, do your part kind of thing. Back in the day, you know, it was do your part. Everyone's got to spray DDT. They were spraying DDT everywhere over kids and stuff, right? So that was deemed a good thing, and everybody was going to do their part and get rid of the bugs or the mosquitoes or whatever it was. But that was not healthy, right? So how do you discern whether or not
it's for the greater good?
It's for the greater good.
Again, you've got to go to the guide inside, back to the master keys of integrity and tuning into the feelings. I remember being a little girl, and I've told this story before. It was such a powerful lesson. I wanted to go and do something that everybody else was doing, and I said to my mom, I said, I'd like to go do it. And my mom recognized that it wasn't something that would be good for me. And I was a little bit upset about the fact that I didn't get to go do it. In fact, in spite of the fact that it wasn't good for me. And my mom pointed out, she said, well, if they're all going to jump off a bridge, are you going to do that too? So it's really important to take a look at mainstream society, at subjective conditioning, and ask whether or not what it's asking us to do is for the greater good of all. Don't go with the herd. Okay? Go inside and ask, is this truly for the greater good of all? Or is this a narrative that I'm being sold with careful examination might reveal is not actually for the greater good of all? If it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. Okay. So check it out a little bit deeper. Go to the guide inside, check in with your intuitive body, listen to your conscience. And if nothing else, just sit in a quiet, still moment and ask the question that says, is this for the greater good of all? Tune into the scoreboard. If it's not, even a little bit, your intuition's going to cause a feeling to rise up that will feel like no, I don't want to do that. Trust that. Go a little bit deeper. Check it out. Ask, Is this really what's best for me? Or am I being sold a false bill of goods here? Because we do know society at large, the mainstream matrix, subjective programming isn't always for the greater good of all. Let's take a look at some completely heinous ideas that we believe to be, not only acceptable, but for the greater good of all, like slavery.
Right.
There is absolutely no way, shape, or form that you're going to convince me that slavery on any level is for the greater good of all. I don't care who or what you're talking about. But yet society at large considered this to be really wise. Society at large condoned it and even incorporated a law system to support it. So please go to the guide inside and check before you follow the mainstream narrative. Check with your intuition. It will guide you.
We talk, you talk about in Mathamagical that there's only really one of us here, which on the surface is really hard to digest.
Yes, at the subjective physical reality level, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, that's a different person
I
right
have
there.
the perception of individuals, many individuals. So how does one get from that position, that perspective, to recognizing this truth that there's only one of us here? Because that's kind of a
well,
leap.
it remains an intellectual concept until we've had the spiritual experience, which allows it to become a visceral knowing. Okay, so initially it's going to sound a little bit crazy. We come into this physical experience and we forget who and what we are, and we forget where we come from. It's kind of like the great forgetting, and the name of the game is to remember who you are in spite of all the programming that's contrary to the truth of who and what you are. That's the challenge. We come from one central source. We come from one divine creative source. Everything that's on earth is created from the divine source. So even though we appear to be separate down here, we come from and will return to the same source. What is good for one is good for the other at the level of truth. At the level of subjective story, at the individual level of the 3D story, what's good for one may not be good for another. So it's really important to remember that we live in a world that is paradox. Okay, truth is paradox. At this level, it's very separate. We're obviously two separate people. That's very, very clear. But in our hearts, where we unite, we're one being. And this is why, if it's for the greater good of all, it will create unity. It will be sustainable because it supports the whole system. If it isn't for the greater good of all, it will eventually collapse, much like if you decided to feed your whole body, but to cut food off to your arm. Okay? It's not going to work.
So it's kind of like we're one big organism.
We're one big organism having separate experiences. It's kind of easy to look at it like we could say we come from one central sun, and each one of us is having our own separate experience, okay? And this one looks different than this one, and this one, and this one, and this one, okay? But when we're finished this experience, the name of the game is to return back to that one central self, that one central creative source, okay? Again, a very vast subject to cover in such a short time.
Yeah. We do have a question about this from someone who's written in on the mathamagical.com website. And it is right here.
Before you ask that, you want
to give away another copy? Sure.
Let's give away another copy. Actually, I can read this one. I lied. Caitlin Dennis.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Caitlin. Sally will send you a copy. And again, I want to remind people that if you're having any trouble with downloading them, please contact hello@supercast.com and they will help you with that. They are being paid to provide this service. Okay, thank you.
Awesome. So we have a question here from Anaritha. She says, this journey is definitely for the better, but it feels like I'm alienating myself. Not so much people distancing themselves from me, but rather that I am distancing myself. It feels like I am more at peace, and if I walk this journey on my own, I have stronger direction. It is definitely not an ego thing, but I don't feel like explaining myself, and the negativity of human beings is running me over. Is this what happens when you decide to make changes for the better good, or the greater good? Or am I at fault here? Thank you once again for your unconditional guidance and support.
Absolutely. You are right on track. You are describing symptoms that I have watched so many people experience and have experienced myself. And you've gone through some of this as well, Graham.
Yeah.
As we begin to awaken to our truth, as we begin to awaken, we start to recognize who we really resonate with and who we don't resonate with. As we move into living in our integrity at the subjective level, the universe will essentially start to move people out of our life, circumstances and storylines out of our life that don't actually resonate with our truth. A lot of us are involved in relationships and circumstances prior to beginning this journey that are really not for our greater good. And we want to withdraw. We want to withdraw from the crowds. We no longer feel the need to do that. I know I spend a great deal of time alone, and I like it that way. It's peaceful. It's calm. Okay, we're not all at the same point in the journey at the same time. So sometimes we need to move away. And a part of that is no longer feeling the need to explain ourselves. Okay, society at large has these false belief systems that say it feels that we have to justify and rationalize our choices. Our personal life choices need to be approved of by some form of external source. That is simply not true. That is a false belief system that is designed to keep us trapped and will not allow us to move forward. Breaking free from the collective unconscious, which is what you're doing, okay? Breaking free from the collective unconscious is not an easy process, okay? It takes time, and it is one that will essentially initially ask us to move away from what doesn't serve us so the universe can start to move us towards what does. And there will be times when we prefer to be alone. It is what is necessary in order to go through this healing and rebalancing process. So you're right on schedule. There is no fault. There is no blame. And don't make excuses. If you need time for yourself, if that's what's for the greater good of all, please remember, oxygen mask on self first. There may be times when practicing, what is for the greater good of all may mean that we may not be able to meet somebody else's needs outside of us at this time because we need to meet our own needs first. And that's what the awakening process asks us to do. It asks us to start ourselves first, not in the sense of being selfish and greedy, not from that perspective at all, but from the perspective of loving self-care.
Yeah.
The fastest path to enlightenment is loving self-care. Go to the guide inside. Oxygen mask on self first. And we need to sometimes turn down the cacophony of the dramatic, distractive world outside of us in order to do that. I know that that's where I survive now. And this is typically why we will have the idea that people who embrace a spiritual practice or people who are considered spiritual, okay, become recluses. We move away from the dysfunctional society at large. Society at this time is pretty maladaptive and dysfunctional. The more awakened we are, the more imbalanced we are, typically the less time we want to spend with the external matrix world. And we start to move towards those individuals that we resonate with who are also on this journey. Okay, so
it's part of the homework too in Mathamagical, where you go through the feelings and saying, how do I feel when I spend time with this person?
Yes. Are you honored by the company you keep, what you eat, and where you sleep? And are you honored by the company you keep is one of the first pieces of homework I encourage people to do. Make a list of the people that you hang out with. I don't mean, the barista at the coffee shop, the people that you hang out with on a regular basis. Go to that still place inside of yourself after you've made the list and sit and look at the first name on the list and ask yourself, how do I feel when I'm in this person's company? And on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 is I feel wonderful and 1 is I feel crummy. In my world, I don't allow anything less than a 7, and the people that I hang out with consistently are typically 8s, 9s, and 10s. Okay? So if I don't feel good when I'm in that person's company, I don't need to tell them that either. My opinion of you is none of your business, and your opinion of me is none of my business. This is where integrity says need to know basis only. But if you don't feel good when you're in that person's company, I would encourage you to stop reaching out to that person, stop feeding the storyline with that person, and watch what the universe does. You might find that that friendship starts to fall away. I do that every now and again. I won't reach out to people, and I'll see who reaches back. It's pretty interesting. You might find some of the relationships that you thought were really solid actually aren't, and they collapse.
I found that through this process, certain relationships or dynamics that I had, when I honored myself more and took time for myself, it was like I had a leak. It was like there was a leak in my boat.
Yep.
And then once I started to say, you know what, I don't really feel too good. I don't feel good when I come home from hanging out with that person or spending time. And taking more time for myself, it was like that leak was slowly being covered up, plugged, you know, and then energy started to return to me.
And we restore balance and we have more power. And another one to watch out for here is too, when you lay a boundary with someone as you're starting to move through this process and crave more time alone, which is an essential part and a very natural and normal part of this process, pay attention to the people that allow you to take this time. and pay attention to the people that don't allow you to take this time. Okay. So Graham and I, in the process of creating Mathamagical and all of the hundreds of hours of work that we've done together, either creating the book or in sessions with Graham, which we did for several years prior to creating the book, we've had to work on creating some healthy boundaries with each other, especially in the creative process when, you can be tired and the energy's running pretty high. So we have an understanding with each other. We'll create space. We'll come back when we need to, but we've committed to the process, and we will come back and talk about it when we're ready. If somebody isn't willing to give you that space, or if somebody wants to cross your boundaries and invade and insist that you give them information that you don't feel comfortable giving them, or that's really none of their business, take note. And I would encourage you to take a step back from that relationship and observe and discern whether or not this is one you want to continue with. Okay.
Thank you for that question, Anaretha.
Very good one.
I saw a few people there on the chat saying great questions. So thank you for asking that, because that's very helpful for a lot of different people as well.
And please don't hesitate, for any of you that are listening, if you have more questions on any subject of the Mathamagical or of the spiritual awakening process, don't hesitate, please, to continue to send them to welcome@mathamagical.com, and I will address them on the Penthouse Perspective. I've already got a stack that people gave me months ago that I am going to be addressing. Okay, we've already got some videos that'll be released soon. Thank you.
That email address you can also find on mathamagical.com. There's a question form at the bottom of the website. Yeah. And it goes, all those questions go to welcome@mathamagical.com.
Yeah, you can also send questions to my website, LynetteElinda.com. I'll also answer the questions there.
Awesome. Let's jump to some questions from the chat. So if you guys have questions on YouTube there and you're joining us live, throw your question in the chat there. I'm going to read some people's experiences with Mathamagical, and then we'll get to your questions.
Wonderful.
We have Janice here. She says, just closed a door, my choice, and I'm now in the hallway. I'm okay, grounded, and the captain of my ship. Must admit, though, it was a bit unsettling, but a new door will open.
That is a wonderful statement. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's proof. Okay. And write in your love list these kinds of messages to yourself. Give yourself that high five. Learn to validate yourself. And this will mean that you don't need to go to external sources for that validation. Very rarely do I need external validation. Very rarely. And when I do need it, I go to sources that I trust. Otherwise, I've learned to validate myself. I've learned to give myself credit and to recognize, hey, that was difficult. And maybe now you want to reward your ego for cooperating and, go and do something loving for yourself. High five. Good for you. And do it again and do it again and do it again. Recording for yourself in the love list the results that you got as a result of making those difficult choices and going outside of your comfort zone. Okay.
Julianne says on the chat here, she says, I've listened to Mathamagical, but it's so hard to clear my thoughts and get into it. Do you have any good advice for me?
I would make sure, this is one that you could speak to. Graham was the one that recorded how to listen to Mathamagical. So maybe you could speak to that.
So Julianne, I would say if you have something on your mind, maybe write it out on paper. Write the things that you're thinking out on paper and that helps me. If there's something on my mind that's really spinning in my head, write that down so that I know I won't forget it. And then dedicate an hour. Just say, for this hour, I'm going to put on these headphones. I'm going to go out for a walk or without distractions. So you don't have anything else. You put your phone on airplane mode or whatever. So you don't have distractions. And just be patient with yourself. If you do get distracted, that's okay. You might be thinking of something. There might be something that you're processing that your brain goes off. And that happens to me a lot too. When I was editing the book, I would be editing and listening to the material, and then my thoughts would go off because what Lynette was saying was triggering something in me, and I was processing it, and my thoughts were going along with it.
Bingo.
So that's okay. That's a part of the process. So be gentle with yourself, be patient, and just like meditation, return back to the content.
And come back to it and come back to it.
Yeah.
And I'll find myself when I'm reading something that is teaching me, that I'm growing with, when I am looking at something that I might not want to really pay attention to, just at the moment when I need to be paying attention, my mind's going to wander.
Yeah.
It's going to wander off. So it's a really good idea to be still, go to a quiet space, don't have distractions around you. I don't encourage doing it while you're driving. And also please recognize, initially when we begin this practice, initially when we start to tune into ourselves and gain mastery over our thoughts, initially it is challenging. Okay, this will pass. stay with it, work with it, and understand that a wandering mind is very, very normal. And I hear people talk about this in meditation all the time, and they'll say, oh, meditation doesn't work for me. Meditation, my mind wanders too much.
A little more blow instead of Joe makes the world so much more beautiful. You are real do-gooders, and I will contribute to this in Belgium. Many thanks.
Oh, thank you so much. Definitely. Blowjobs all the way. Let's be loving, open, and willing, and let go of Joe jobs. No judgments, opinions, and expectations. Wonderful. Thank you.
Christine Davies says, just want to thank you both for helping me to have the courage and strength to make some changes in my life. The most important one has been to learn to forgive. A great burden has been lifted. It has been a long journey to get to this point, but with your words of wisdom, you have helped me to overcome and move on. As well, since first listening to you both, I have done some things outside my comfort zone, and I want to thank you both for inspiring me to push myself.
Thank you for your message, Christine. Definitely, forgiveness is not easy. And some of us, as you know, are given some pretty heavy stuff to forgive. Okay? Good on you. Keep going, sister. Keep going.
Awesome. So if you guys have any other questions, you want to throw them on the chat there. I know some people are saying that they lost the feed. Hopefully it's back. People say it's back, so that's good. I'm happy to hear that. Hopefully it will be in the playback. It'll be smooth.
Yeah, we are somewhere a little bit remote right now.
The Wi-Fi signal's a little spotty, so hopefully
those are the Rocky Mountains, and we are in mosquito territory. And in spite of the fact that the sun's going down, I'm still melting up here in the mountains, and I can see snow, which I find just so ironic. You know, I'm sweating in the snow.
You want to give away another copy here? Okay.
Another copy.
Mirella, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Mirella. You will be getting an email from Sally with a free copy of Mathamagical. Congratulations.
Okay. So if we got any questions there, if anybody has any questions,
not yet. People are just saying that the feed is back. Thank you. So that's good.
Okay, good stuff. All right. Throw some questions.
Yeah, if you guys have any more questions about Master Keys or any parts of Mathamagical, this is our final episode. This is episode 10, part 2, where we covered all the Master Keys. So if you have any other questions that you want to ask before we wrap this up, otherwise, Lynette will be answering more questions on the penthouse
perspective.
So don't feel like you're going to, if you don't get your question answered, there's still more opportunity for that for Lynette in the future.
Right. And again, you can find the book at mathamagical.com, and you can find out more information and testimonials about my work at LynetteElinda.com. And should you wish to reach out for a personal session and you would like details about that, you can email me at LynetteElinda.com. If you'd like to be added to my email list and be made aware of shows that are being released or anything else that I might be doing, please feel free to send an email to LynetteElinda.com. And in the subject line, please just simply add me to your email list. And Sally will take care of that. Thank you.
Kathy Cohn says, I find it hard to let go of people when I see potential for them to grow and to come to truth. How do you discern who might grow and who to let go of?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question. And actually, that's one that I can really relate to in doing the work myself and working with people on a daily basis. And one of the things that I like to observe is whether or not this person is inspired to be the captain of their own ship, even in a slight way. If they're even slightly inspired to be the captain of their own ship, then move forward with them, support them in the process. If they're not comfortable with being the captain of their own ship, we are in Whistler, it's full of trucks, okay? If they aren't being comfortable with being the captain of their own ship, you're going to notice they won't take any initiative. If somebody takes initiative, if somebody shows up, if they're open, if they're listening, move towards serving and supporting them. But it's also very helpful to remember that we're not here to save anybody. Okay, so take your time, observe, and sometimes it might mean observe for a little while, surrender, move forward, take a step back, observe, surrender, move forward, take a step back. We may be asked to do these things repeatedly, okay? But remember, everyone is going to end. I like to put it this way. None of us finishes this race until we all finish this race. We just may not all finish the race at the same time or in the same space and time. So let that go and allow the divine creative source to take care of the heavy lifting. And if we work at just being present, surrendering to the moment, serving and supporting, showing up where that person shows up. Again, when we're working with adults, we want to remember that we'll meet each other halfway. If we're working with children, we want to figure out where the child is and go to the child. So it depends on whether you're working with adults or children. We're going to do a little more heavy lifting for children because they're innocents and they don't know yet. And when it comes to adults, we're going to lay more boundaries and we're going to observe whether that adult is meeting us halfway. I know in my circumstances, in my life, I'm always observing when I'm working with people in sessions, the more they lean into me, the more I can lean into them. And that's what I'm looking for. If that person is inspired to make change in their own life, then my service and support will be of value. If it isn't, I'm wasting my time, my energy, and their time. Okay. I hope this helps.
I hope so too. Yeah. Let us know, Kathy, if that was, I think it was Kathy Cohn, Connie Cohn. Sorry. Who was, forgive me. I can't remember the name of the person who asked that question. No, it was Kathy Cohn. It was Kathy Cohn.
He only has 4,000 things to do. Graham does all of this. I just sit where I'm told to sit and put on the microphone. So I really appreciate it.
Lori says, how can there be so much good/evil if we are all one? Shouldn't we all be doing our part for the greater good?
Okay, well, that's a really big question. And we want to understand that evil, let's call it shadow, is the absence of light. And in this physical human experience, we're experiencing duality, shadow and light. So essentially, we need both. We need the shadow in order to remember who and what we are, to bring the light to the shadow, which is then when we transcend a situation, we overcome a problem. This is a big topic to go into. A very good question, Lori, but one that I think I might have to address a little more deeply on the penthouse perspective. One of the things that we can begin to do to move forward in life is to accept that we're here to have a duality experience: good, bad, right, wrong, success, failure, in, out, hot, cold, night, day, good, bad, right, wrong, all of these things. The name of the game is not to get stuck in the polarization. The name of the game is to not resist the fact that there is shadow, to accept the fact that there is shadow, or quote unquote, what some people could call evil, and to, instead of resisting the fact that there's shadow, focus on the light, which immediately transcends and transmutes the shadow. So we need shadow. It is our learning board, you could say. It's our template for learning. If we didn't have duality, if we didn't have the contrast, there'd be nothing to learn. And we might as well just have stayed home. In our natural state, we're loving beings. In our natural state, we automatically do what is for the greater good of all. We're all in conscious contact with each other all the time. In the physical experience, we lose awareness of that contact. And the name of the game is to practice doing what is for the greater good of all, one step at a time. And as we do that, we move towards what is for the greater good of all. We step into our own light. We automatically cancel the shadow, you could say, or transmute and transcend. I hope that helps, Lori. If you could search the line and let us know.
Question,
it
Lori.
is a big
great question, though.
Yeah.
Amy Moore says, you say that we are all empathetic on some level. She says, my ex-husband had no empathy. How is that possible?
Okay, well, actually, the truth of who and what we are is that we are empathic beings. Okay, I'm what is referred to as an adept empath, who is somebody that can tune into multiple energetic systems. And that's at one end of the spectrum. At the other end of the spectrum could be somebody who appears to lack empathy, but they're actually just disconnected from it. If you take the profile of a sociopath or a psychopath or a covert narcissist, they will seem to be devoid of empathy, very much indeed. But they've simply disconnected themselves from it to the degree that they don't display it, they don't use it. But it is their innate nature. It just might be something that they're not using right now. Okay, so again, another really great question. And the name of the game is to tune into the guidance system, to tune into our own feeling system, and recognize whether or not this person is practicing empathy. Is this person able to tune in? And when we're entering relationships, a lot of us jump right in. And this is where I recommend sip, don't gulp. Take your time. Observe whether this person is able to meet you halfway. Observe whether this person is paying attention to your feelings. Observe if this person is respecting your boundaries. And if they're not, don't move towards them. The fact that somebody may not be able to feel empathy is not wrong or bad, but it is something that you might want to be aware of before you enter into a relationship and adjust your expectations accordingly. Okay. So somebody who's a psychopath or a sociopath is essentially someone who is so far disconnected from who and what they are, empathy isn't possible. And typically they will need to essentially die of this physical story, this body, and return into another body and essentially start over. Okay. Cole's Notes version, please. Recognize it's the Cole's Notes version.
We got one more question here from Margaret Cardona. She says, I feel like I'm stuck in park, neutral, and sometimes reverse. How do you motivate yourself to move forward?
Well, there's a number of different ways that you can do that. And one of the fastest ways that I like to use is music to create a really positive playlist for myself. Another tool, and this is somebody that I would highly recommend, read Mathamagical, okay, because there's a lot of tools there. When we're stuck, essentially, the universe is saying you need to make a choice. You need to decide whether you're going to surrender, which could release the stuck. You need to make a choice, which could release the stuck. So I really encourage going to the guide inside, and journaling can also be a really helpful one. Ask yourself in that stillness, am I avoiding something? Am I needing to release something? Is it time for me to make a decision that I've been avoiding that I really don't want to make, that I might not be conscious of? These are the kinds of questions that you could start to ask yourself. And last but by no means least, meditation. To practice meditation. I do have a beginner's meditation on my website, LynetteElinda.com. It's free to download, and I encourage practicing it for 28 days straight, 30 if you can, or longer, and it will essentially start to clear out the cobwebs to that energetic connection of who and what we are, and inspiration will start to come through that connection. The word inspiration is, in its origin, is in spiritus in Latin, which means to be in spirit. So when we're in spirit, when we're aligned with who and what we are, even to a little degree, we start to feel inspired. Things start to move forward. We start to experience ease and flow. And I myself never feel very far away from inspiration at all. I live in the state of inspiration most of the time. I'm very grateful for it, and I practice the tools to get myself there. Again, inspiration is like a dimensional state of being. I practice tools like music, my love list, surrounding myself with positive people, positive information. I have different positive quotes around my house. I'll go out in nature. What works for you? What works for you? And sometimes when we're stuck, it might mean we simply need to take a break and recharge our batteries. Okay, we might be burnt out and there's just not enough fuel in the tank to move forward. So again, back to the fastest path to enlightenment is loving self-care. Okay, I encourage you to get a copy of Mathamagical. And if you would also like to enter your name for the draw, please send your name to mathamagical.com.
Yes, thank you everybody so much for joining us. And Lynette, I want to practice the Master Key of Appreciation with you right now and say how much I appreciate you having me a part of this project, me being able to contribute and make this all possible. This was a lot of fun for me. I really appreciate all that you've given to me and all that you've helped me learn along this way, because we've been working together for about 5 years now, and it has truly changed my life. So I just wanted to say thank you. I deeply appreciate everything that you've done and all the efforts and energies that you've put into your work and into Mathamagical. It's changed my life, and I know many of you out there watching and who have listened to the book, it has changed your lives too. So I just want to do a big thank you to Lynette from me and from everyone out there. Thank you for what you've done. This has been really fun for me, and I hope you guys have had fun too, watching the Reflections on the Journey show as we break down the chapters of the book, because it was awesome for me. So thank you.
Thank you, Graham. And Graham is hitting the right frequency because it's contagious, and I can feel it. I can feel it. And I want to share my appreciation for you, Graham. You've taught me so much about technology, predominantly that I don't like it and I don't want to play with it. But also the wonderful thing is that appreciation is something that is the gift that just keeps on giving. And where Graham appreciates me, I appreciate Graham. It's been a wonderful journey. I really appreciate the time we spent together.
Amen.
And I want to thank everyone out there for the feedback, for participating, for showing up, for getting up in the middle of the night. Thank you so much. And I have to say from the bottom of my heart, I so deeply appreciate every single one of you. And I send out my best wishes and prayers to all of you. And remember, none of us finishes this race till we all finish this race. Enlightenment is a team sport. So that just leaves me with one question for you. The only question remaining is, do you choose to be who and what you really are in this moment now?